I'm starting with California. We'd love to be able to get a couple of states in here, but the gubernatorial race is a big one. And we just spent some time out in L.A., so I had a chance to be treated to the political ads from Javier Becerra and Tom Steyer. The question is, with these two Democrats potentially out in front, and the conventional wisdom is this is Becerra's to lose here, there's a question about whether a Republican named Steve Hilton will make his way into a likely runoff. How are you looking at the gubernatorial contests in California?
Yeah, I mean, you named the three contenders for the two slots, and you also got to remember, California. It's a Hollywood cliffhanger in terms of the actual vote counting. It's going to take weeks to actually finalize it, and so when we wake up tomorrow morning in the East, we probably won't really know exactly who will have advanced, because you might still have a big chunk of the vote that still remains to be counted. It is worth noting that, a few months ago, when the Democratic field was much more muddled, there was some worry among Democrats that two Republicans might advance to the general election, despite California being a blue state in a blue-leaning year. Now it seems more likely, or at least more possible, that those two Democrats, Becerra and Steyer, could actually advance to the general election. Certainly, you'd favor strongly a Democrat to be the next governor of California, and it's among those three to determine who makes the top two elections in November.
I really want to ask you, Kyle, about Spencer Pratt in the LA mayoral race, but I feel like I probably should instead lean on your expertise to talk about the fact that California in the House or the congressional primaries is dealing with the new map post Prop 50. So with that in mind, which races are you watching most closely today?
The two shakiest intended Democratic pickups are an open seat, California 48, which has Palm Springs, and then some more kind of conservative-leaning territory. It voted for Kamala Harris by about 3 points. There's a pretty hotly contested race on the Democratic side to see who the Democrat emerges against. Jim Desmond, who's a San Diego County office holder, is the leading Republican candidate. And then David Valadao, who lost in 2018, but as a Republican incumbent, but otherwise has been a great survivor in a kind of a swing district that really swung pretty heavily toward Donald Trump in 2024, and even under the new lines voted for Trump by 2 points. And there's kind of a left versus center kind of Democratic primary to see who gets to advance to face Valadao. And again, those are two seats that are really important to the overall Democratic House math. You see these analyses of redistricting and say, oh, well, Democrats are, they're going to pick up 5 seats in California. Not necessarily, because they do have to win those 2 swing seats. And I'd say the same thing about how, in Texas, Republicans drew themselves 5 new seats, but they're not guaranteed to win all 5 of those seats.
Really interesting. Let's go to Iowa for a moment, Kyle, because we've got a really important Senate race there. This is one of the seats that Democrats think they can flip, the seat that's being vacated by Joni Ernst. And it's a test as well for Chuck Schumer, who has come behind Josh Turek, a moderate Democrat state lawmaker who's also a Paralympic gold medalist. And he's up against a progressive named Zach Walz. How does this shake out?
Yeah, Turek is definitely kind of the D.C. Democratic candidate against Zach Walz, who's in the context of this race is kind of more of the outsider, even though Walz is also a member of the state legislature in that state. There's been a lot of money that's come in through this third-party group called Vote Vets, which is kind of connected to Democratic leadership in sort of an indirect way. Turek himself is not a veteran, but his father was. And obviously they're coming in very strongly for Turek. Waiting for the Democratic nominee is very likely to be Ashley Hinson, who is a House member from Northeast Iowa. Hinson won a very competitive race in 2020 to get elected as Republican to the House, and I think is a relatively strong replacement nominee for Joni Ernst, who's retiring. I do think that if Turek gets nominated, I think that race gets more competitive. Although I don't necessarily think it's a true toss-up. At least to start the general election. We'll see who ends up winning the Democratic nomination.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so where right now, in terms of the reaches and then potentially achievable or more likely to be achievable Senate flips for Democrats, does Iowa rank right now, Kyle? You also have the likes of Alaska and Maine, in Texas. Is Iowa actually potentially the easiest of all of them?
I don't think so. I would probably rank Alaska and Ohio ahead of Iowa, at least at this point, mainly because Mary Peltola, former House member running in Alaska, and Sherrod Brown, former senator running in Ohio, are, I'd say, more proven candidates than whoever the Democrats end up nominating in Iowa. Iowa also is a little bit more Republican for president, at least than Ohio was. And then I'd put maybe Texas and Iowa in a similar kind of bucket. Bottom line is that even if Democrats win essentially all the other competitive races, so Maine and North Carolina as seats that Republican seats they're targeting, Democrats need to defend Michigan, but even if they do all that, they need at least two double-digit 2024 Trump states in order to flip the Senate. Alaska and Ohio, again, I think are probably at the top of that list, but then you look at like an Iowa and a Texas and maybe a few other places as possibilities, depending on how the candidates do and how good the environment is for Democrats. Certainly the political environment does look pretty good for Democrats right now. It kind of looks like 2018 or maybe even a touch bluer than that by the time we get to November.
I just want to mention a breaking headline that just crossed the terminal. It's a redhead, having told you a bit earlier that they are going to do another White House Correspondents' Dinner at the end of July 24th. The president just posted that he does plan to attend. It's apparently going to be at the former Trump Hotel, now the Waldorf on Pennsylvania Avenue. Kayleigh didn't want to get into it, Kyle, but I've got to bring up Spencer Pratt because this is the talker.
I mean, wanted to.
The AI Star Wars videos alone bring us to this moment here. Is this real? Like, is he said to be in third place behind Mayor Karen Bass? Can he make the runoff?
My guess is it'll be relatively close for whether he makes it or not. And remember, whatever the results look like when you wake up in the morning in the East are not necessarily what they're going to look like finally. One of the things that seems like has happened is that because of some of the drama in the California governor's race and also arguably the LA mayor's race too, it seems like Democrats were a little bit later in terms of turning in their ballots. And so, at various times over the last 10, 15 years under California's current election system, you had this sort of like a red mirage to start, meaning that the initial results kind of looked more Republican and then they got bluer as all the votes were counted. It seems like we're probably in for that sort of dynamic again. So don't make any judgments based on what the results look like overnight. You gotta wait for the whole thing to be finished.